I've never done this in a client session. It just finished 5 minutes ago, and it's a story which I need to share. I've got permission from the client. You're gonna love this. It relates to this idea of working and willpower and spiritual work ethic. So let me just tell you the story. I just got off a 2-hour client session. The way that I run my mentorships, it's 4 months, it's many sessions, there's 2-hour sessions, and at the halfway point, about 1 hour in, we take a 5-minute break. On my 5-minute breaks, I do a variety of very boring things. I go to the toilet, I make a cup of tea, or maybe a cup of coffee if it's in the morning. Sometimes I have a snack, and most often I will go outside, look at the sun, listen to a bird, and occasionally I'll go into my garage, the kind of carport area, and I've got a set of gymnastics rings, and I will hang from the rings like this and do a spinal decompression. I'll hang there for about 10 seconds and then turn around, come back inside, finish off my tea, walk back into the library and resume the session with my client having done something very similar. Hopefully they don't go and check their email or do something counterproductive. That's the general vibe. That's what a break's all about. But something happened today. This is why I'm telling the story, and it relates to this topic. My client was struggling in the first half of the session, I've got permission to share the story, with a certain creative blockage that it's been 5 weeks of them not following through on a very simple accountability that would require very little effort, a certain creative output. They need to put something on the internet and just make it happen. And it's been 5 weeks and it hasn't happened. And I have compassion. I have a lot of compassion for this process. I know that blockages, I know that barriers can come out of nowhere. But still, in this 5-minute break, I'd just been having this conversation. We've been exploring it. And yet again, another barrier. I hung off the rings. I walked to the end of my driveway. It's already night. It was 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night by the time this break was taking place. And before I realized, I was halfway down the street, completely thoughtless, and I turned around and realized that I've just walked barefoot on the concrete into the darkness. There's no street lights down that area that I was walking because I don't live in a light polluted area. I just walked into the darkness without thinking about it. And I started laughing to myself, and I came back in, sat down in the library and said to my client, Mr. Client, you're not going to believe what happened. This has never happened before in a client break. I just went and walked into the darkness on your behalf because I'm so bloody frustrated that you're not taking this action. I tried to do it automatically with my own body. And we both laughed about it. And of course, it's very confronting, and it's someone that I've got months and months of rapport with. There's something about work ethic, and there's something about effort, and there's something about really motivating yourself to do whatever it might be, which is powerful and great. But actually, if we're being honest, it's not about that. Often, it's about just doing the thing before you even weave a narrative around the thing that you're doing. I ended up halfway down the street in the darkness in the middle of a client session, having never had a client break like this, because some part of me was so frustrated at the lack of forwards momentum with my client, this stagnating and thinking about things, that I just started walking into the night. And that is the exact principle that I want to share in this video. I've got a sophisticated question to bring forwards. It's a wonderful question. We're going to go into spiritual depths, but that is the end point up front. The question now is, how can you get to a point where you genuinely start outworking other people with a sense of not losing your soul and maintaining spiritual discipline, a sense of spiritual nourishment, a sense of purpose, a sense of drive, and not becoming mechanistic or being a slave to the structure which you build around yourself. That's one of the challenges for creatives, for anyone who's entrepreneurial, or anyone who's just trying to get ahead in life. How do you move forwards consistently without becoming trapped, and how do you prevent that feeling of stagnating and worrying and trying to plan things out past the point of effectiveness? That's what we're going to explore with that little story aside. Maybe it doesn't mean much to you. You're still watching the video at this point, so clearly you were interested in my client break moment. It's significant to me. The break isn't just a break. There's a consciousness break, and often I pay attention to myself as the facilitator in terms of, what's going on with my mind? Why do I do things in a certain way? And it gives a lot of good material. And interestingly, we both agreed that at the end of the session, we would then go and do our various creative things. So here I am doing my creative thing, and he's doing his creative thing. So we're in the energy in real time. Let's bring today's question up. Jordan, I'm 3 months into the healing journey, including monk mode and no substances, and a distinct voice of my will has come back after 7 years, an intrinsically motivated, competitive, and light-hearted voice. I like the sound of this. I know that voice very well, that sense of drive, but a buoyant drive, a feeling of being carried along by life. It's a fantastic place to be in sobriety and monk mode, which is abstaining from adult material and maybe in this particular case abstaining from releasing your energy in an unskillful way with your hand and whatever particular fantasy you might go down. That all contributes to that same drive, that feeling of extra energy. Let's continue with the question. I realized when I engaged in the world as I did before, I had overly identified with my persona or my mask, and everything I did was clearly or subtly to impress others in some other way. Now I have no one to impress. My intrinsic will speaks up. Do you have any advice for further getting closer to the will that moves mountains? Yes, I do. It's very simple. You just keep moving. The will which moves mountains, and this is something that I haven't done, I think, publicly on YouTube. I might have. I've done it in the course. This is the book that my camera is leaning on. It's Roberto Asagoli's The Act of Will. It just happens to be the right height for propping this camera up. And hopefully we get the framing good there, but I'm literally resting my internet creations on the act of will. I love this question. Here's someone who's been putting in the work, who's been making the changes, who's already been feeling that feeling of motivation and competitiveness, but a light-hearted, spiritually infused version of how to get ahead and move forwards, how to hustle with heart. Let's call it that, hustle with heart. Maybe that's an entrepreneurial way to spin some spirituality into it. Someone who's in that consciousness, someone who's already gotten the wins, already feeling the success. They want more of that. And the way to get more of the will that moves mountains, unfortunately, is to just keep moving. Do the simple things repeatedly for multiple years, with an awareness that every now and again a shortcut might appear. There might be a random emergence of some opportunity, but fundamentally, you just do the same simple things over and 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 over again, while crucially not regressing into the things which got you into bad positions in the first place. You don't go back to the ex. You don't get back on the drink and the drugs. You don't go on the shady websites, and you don't spend time regressing into shameful, worried states because you know that you have the willpower and the agency and the consciousness to rip yourself out of that regressive pattern that would drop you all the way back to the lowest levels of awareness. You just don't let it happen. And the will starts to build. It's not some magical willpower, a God-given gift that is bestowed upon you, and here we are lucky to receive the blessing. It's something which is practiced. And if you can practice the willpower, you then start to be given more willpower. You get the little wins and you stack it day by day. It's almost a self-development video at this point. You just do the same things over and over and over again. And the reason I brought that message out at the very beginning of this video, that story, the client session that finished only 15-20 minutes ago, is because this particular client, again sharing anonymized with his blessing, has a wicked sharp mind and the ability to weave stories and imagine scenarios and speak and form narratives and go back and go forwards, and it's very, very impressive. But at a certain point, that ability to think becomes a burden. You just stop moving forwards if your mind has already launched 1 mile in that direction, already launched 1 mile in that direction. You're playing with the multiple levels and the multiple timelines of possibilities of what so-and-so might think, or what this person might think, or where maybe if something goes really well and you get all the success you're dreaming of, it then ends up in a position where there's a conflict or there's a fallout or whatever. Of course you're not going to take a step. You're not going to take a step. You're not going to get access to the will that moves mountains because you are not willing to move. I was so frustrated in that break, not with a sense of agitation. This is crucial. I'm glad that I'm remembering this and sharing it with you. I didn't go outside. This is so crucial. I'm not going to re-record the video. I wish I had have mentioned this earlier. I didn't leave this library in a huff. I didn't get up and go, why are we not doing it? Why has he not done this for 5 weeks? I can't believe this. And I angrily click the kettle and I slam the door and I go out and hang off the rings like this. And that wasn't my energy. I walked out and I went, bit of confusion, thinking about it, maybe a bit of frustration. And then I just moved through it. I didn't waste the energy getting angry. I just provided the solution. Of course, it's not a literal solution. I can't literally walk through the darkness on his behalf. But isn't it sweet and isn't it cute that some part of my unconscious body decided to take on the burden of moving forwards? And I even said to him in session, if I was in your part of the world, they're in the States, if I was in America and I could come around and just sit in your living room and not leave until you'd done the thing, I would do that, because that's what I want to do. You just need that healthy performative pressure, that ability for men in particular to tap into warrior consciousness and move in a linear direction towards their goals. But even from a more feminine framing, you don't need the masculine discipline and work ethic. You can devote yourself to a cause. You can devote yourself to your family, your children, your work, your spiritual practices, your self-healing. You can be devoted, and once you are devoted, or once you're disciplined in that masculine fashion, whichever way you want to move, the butterfly still forms. The devotion or the discipline, you will be given the willpower because you made the movement in the first place. You gain the courage when you start walking. You build the self-esteem when you have done things that you esteem. Stupidly simple. But you will esteem yourself if you do esteemable things. This questioner in particular, he has already got many months of wins of sobriety and making changes in his life. That's why he wants more of it, because he's already got a taste of what it could be like. He's moving forwards, and the moving energy, the pushing energy, is something which is really not that special. It's just taking the step. You've got a creative project, you've got another book that's unread, you've got a conversation that you need to have. It doesn't need to be perfect. Think of something. Anything in your life right now, the thing that you are procrastinating, the conversation you're avoiding, the message you're refusing to send, the workout that you're neglecting, and just go and do it. There is a time for psychotherapeutically dissecting every single possible traumatic origin of your current behavior. You can go into the nervous system science and you can read another dozen books about the history of the present and why things happen and what to do about it. Or you can save that for later and you can just make the right move, which can just be a small step. And sometimes it means a small step back. It means taking a break, or it means dropping something away. It doesn't have to be dramatic. And if you start to get worried about the path ahead, if you start to get anxious that if you go down this certain successful structural lane and maybe you get everything you want and I'm probably not ready to receive this, or if you make a change, you're going to lose friends or family members or your relationship will fall apart, maybe it will. I'll be honest with you. Maybe it will, but that's also the game of life. You can't avoid participation unless you want to truly remain in the spectator stand and watch other people on the internet who are willing to stand in front of a camera and talk what's on their heart and not do it yourself. Why would you do that? Why are you still doing that? Of course, I love doing this. I'm not saying stop watching this video immediately. That wouldn't be good for me because I have at least a few more minutes of things to share. But also, if you do actually want to go and stop watching this video right now and go and do the thing, I would understand and I'd appreciate that. Give you 2 seconds to do it right now. You're still here, still watching the video. We're missing the point. We're missing the point with what we're doing on the internet. It's small, subtle, repeated steps. Stop watching other people. Stop worrying about other people. Spend the time reflecting on the path ahead. Set the lane. Create the structure. And just step thoughtlessly. Walk out into the darkness without a plan. Find yourself halfway down the street like I did just an hour ago in the middle of a client session and surprised by how much progress I've made because I didn't make it mean anything in particular. I just started moving. If you want a spiritual twist on this whole idea, there's this concept that God likes people who pray and move their feet. God likes hard workers. Doesn't need to go into a Christian punishing work ethic, but overall, manifestation and intention is the ability to intend something and then materialize it via action, via repeated action. If you can dream it and you can see it and you want it, reach out and claim it. You can do that. It's the end of the video. Here's the next one.